Okay, if my hair looks whack as shit, don't talk about it. We don't need to talk about this. I just washed my hair. Hey y'all. And by y'all, I mean no one, because no one's watching this. I've been doing this thing, YouTube, I guess. Wait, let me fix my camera. Okay, I think this is better. Okay. I've been doing this thing, YouTube, for like a month now, and I've come to a few realizations. So let's talk about some of them. One is that I have no storage. I'm gonna insert a picture of my lack of storage, and I have no storage, and it's a conflict between not only myself but also my technology. I will never be able to resolve this issue. Another is that I speak way too quickly and way too quietly. I'm still trying to figure out how to fix that, and it makes editing really difficult. Another is that editing takes forever. 20 minutes is very long for a video, and I will never make it 20 minutes in this year of our Lord 2023. Now that's out of the way, another thing I discovered was that raw dogging a video without a script is difficult. And I have a very long train of thought, but it is not a train of thought that relates to books when I'm talking to a camera. I have many skills, and that is not one of them. So I made a silly little goofy little script, and I'm gonna be reading off of it. They're still my thoughts technically. I'm gonna be glancing up, every now and then, just so I can like maintain my train of thought and not spend forever on a topic and make an hour-long video when it really does not need to be an hour long. My script is like 3K words, so it's not that much. If y'all read Wattpad, I have a Wattpad. If you want to know, let me know. But if y'all read Wattpad, that is light work. Light work, no reaction. So this book that I read, it's for school. It's called All the Light We Cannot See. This bad boy right here. This is the book by Anthony Doerr. If that's not how you spell his name, that's none of my business. If that's not how you say his name, that's none of my business. It's actually been great timing that I'm talking about it now because, first of all, I'm reading it for school. I chose to read it because I'm an intellectual, but also because I believe a mini-series came out about it very recently on Netflix starring Lewis Hoffman. Lewis, you play Werner. And if you're watching this, hi. My Instagram is in my bio. It's not. I'll add it in my bio so you can check it out. I'm debating if I should make a new Instagram just for my YouTube or if I should put my Instagram that I already have, because it's just people from school and my parents who follow me and my siblings. It has my real name on it, and I'm not trying to spread my real name because I don't want to get like doxxed or anything. So I might just make a new Instagram, but I also might not. I don't know. Oh my god, like those YouTubers be like, let me know in the description. This book has been on my TBR for a while now, so it's actually kind of nice that I got to read it for school. Let's begin. I'm gonna start with lip gloss on my cheeks because it is way too pigmented. It's like some like rare beauty type shit, but it's not. It's like the Quo Beauty thingy-majiggy. I'm gonna try using it as a blush. I've never done it before, but it's like lip gloss. Bad idea? I don't know, but I'm gonna try it out. So our story starts off in France in August of 1944. This book is a World War II book. It's told anachronically, which just means that it's told out of order. Some chapters will be from like 1944, some chapters are from 1940. Honestly, I don't really like when stories are told that way because it's a lot for my little brain to figure out. There's a few characters that matter in our story, and they are Marie-Laure Leblanc. She's a French girl who's about 10 to 16 years old, depending on which chapter the story's in, and she goes blind due to an eye condition when she's quite young, like before she's 10, I believe. So she's kind of getting used to her life as a blind girl, uses her cane, whatnot. And then there's also Daniel Leblanc, who is a locksmith at a museum of natural history, and this is in Paris. There's also Etienne Leblanc, and he is Marie-Laure's great uncle. He was in the First World War. He had very severe PTSD. I believe he was in the war with his brother, but I'm not completely sure, don't quote me on that. He's a shut-in, he can't go outside because trauma. Who goes outside for him? I'm glad you asked. That is Madame Manic. She is an elderly lady who's worked for the Leblanc family for quite a few decades. She serves as like a cook and a maid. So on the other side of the book, there's two storylines. Well, there's quite a few storylines, but the two main ones are Marie-Laure and Werner. So on the other side of the book, there's also a main character named Werner Pfennig. I don't know if that's how you say his name. I'll spell it out on the screen. He is a German orphan who's about 12 to 16, again, depending on which part of the book. No, 12 to 18. He's low-key like a master manipulator, like academic weapons smart boy. He's really good with radios and science and physics and such, which actually gets him accepted into an academy, which trains people to be soldiers for German dude with weird pedo mustache. An interesting thing about this book that I thought about yesterday is that they don't mention him very often, which is kind of interesting and unique, seeing as this is a war novel about World War II. And as you know, as I hope you know, pedo mustache guy was quite integral to the war. Interesting how the book censors Werner. He was basically youth adjacent. There's also Werner's little sister, Jutta. I'm most definitely butchering these names. I'm sorry, but I'm not German. I don't speak German. We're talking about Mary Laure now. Mary Laure is 12 years old. She's fully blind in Paris, but guess what? World War II baby. It's 1940 and her dad, Daniel, rushes her out of Paris because they're about to be occupied by the Yahtzee people, because that's what they did. They didn't think that was Red Cash money, so they were like, oh, let me dip. Daniel's associate at the museum, I think it's his boss, is like, here, come to this guy's house and he will keep you safe. But once they reach his house, guess what? His house was attacked and looted. I believe it was bombed too. So there's nothing there. The guy's long gone. Daniel LeBlanc has this cheeky little idea, and he's like, oh my god, why don't we go to my crazy uncle's house in Saint Malo? It's a little port city in France somewhere. Best part is it's not occupied. Is this really a Merlin Lolo makeup video if I do not put obscene amounts of blush on? No, it's not. So they go to Saint Malo. This is where we meet Madame Manic. She's a sweet old lady. I really appreciate her character because she has a lot of quotes and themes that I needed to talk about for my school project. I ate that up. Also meet Etienne. I don't really have much to say about Etienne because he's an interesting, nice guy. He's more important to the plot later. So when they move to Saint Malo, Mary is under the impression that she and her father are going to return to Paris. She's just like 12 years old, you know, she doesn't know what's going on. She's just like, oh, we're going to go back home. They thought they'd only be with their uncle for like a couple of weeks, but guess what? Almost a year passes, about 8 months, and they're still in Saint Malo. They get used to their living conditions until Mary's dad, Daniel, gets a letter telling him that he needs to return to Paris by his employer. They're like, yo, come back, we need your help. Here's the gag. This is because Daniel has this really expensive and rare gemstone called the Sea of Flames. It's pretty important to the story. There's a whole bunch of lore surrounding it, but I don't care enough to explain. Moving on, Daniel's got the Sea of Flames. His boss is like, yo, go leave Paris. You need to take this stone. His boss made 3 identical Sea of Flames stones so that no one would know which one is the real one. And Daniel takes it to Saint Malo with Mary. But spoiler alert, no one finds the stone. It's just lost. I'm sorry if that was really hard to understand. While Daniel heads back to Paris, he's arrested because someone in Saint Malo, they're like, yo, this guy's suspicious. Arrest this man. They think he was a spy. But you know what he was really doing instead of being a spy? He was mapping out the city so that he could carve little models of each house and give them to Mary Laure in the form of like a diorama, like a big 3D map of the city, so she can like feel it and memorize what the city looks like, so that if she ever were to walk in the city, she'd know what it looks like. Okay, I'm gonna do my lips first before my other stuff because my lips were looking crusty in the last video. So my boy David, is that his name? Daniel? David? Anyways, Mr. LeBlanc gets arrested. He's sent to a slammer, a prison camp in Germany somewhere. And he actually ends up dying there due to like pneumonia or something. But we found that out a lot later in the story. So while Mary's dad is gone, he sends her a few letters and she figures out that the Sea of Flames is in her possession. He made a model of the house that they're living in, and in that model he was able to somehow hide it inside. Saint Malo becomes occupied by the Yahtzee. Madame Manic starts she doesn't start resistance, but she is part of a resistance. She basically helps plan little counterattacks. Basically, they just try to help the Allies win the war because even though France is technically occupied, they still are on the side of the good guys? I don't know. War talk. I don't fucking know, man. I might be a history major soon, but that doesn't mean I need to know. I actually love Madame Manic, but she eventually croaks. Just because she's old. Like, she got sick, she's old, she croaked. But we love her. After she dies, Mary Laure convinces Etienne to help her with the resistance, and they basically go to a baker. They bake a fresh loaf of bread, they put a paper in the bread, and inside the bread is a scroll of paper. On the paper is different numbers and coordinates and stuff, and they read the coordinates into a radio, and those numbers are picked up by the resistance people who plan attacks or kill soldiers or I don't know, fuck up their plans or something. I don't know. A really cool thing about the radio lore is that Etienne and his brother, when he was alive, his brother and Etienne taught lessons, physics lessons, math lessons, using a radio. I believe this is how it went. The brother wrote the scripts, and Etienne would read the script and play music and work the radio so that it would like go as far as like Germany. Want some more lore about the radio and about the transmissions? Want some tea? Take a guess who used to listen to those radio transmissions. It was Werner. Hi, Lewis. Let's take a break from Mary Laura and talk about my babe Werner. Werner is this skinny little twink-ass kid. Well, he's not a twink, but he's a skinny white boy. He likes to be a little bit of a Tinkerbell, a little bit of a Tinker Fairy, if you will. And he becomes such like a big-brained beast. Like, he's so knowledgeable that neighbors start asking him to fix their radios, their appliances and such. And sometimes he gets paid for it. Word gets around, and eventually these two German officers roll up to the orphanage, and they're talking about like, hey Werner, wanna fix this radio I got here? And Werner, he does this in like 2 seconds. This earns him a scholarship to study at the war school that I was talking about earlier, and he basically trains to be a soldier. So at this school, he meets his friend Frederick, and I honestly thought they were gonna be gay for each other. They're not. Guys, Anthony Dorr. Fuck, there's no picture of him. Anthony Dorr. This guy's homophobic. For legal reasons, I have to say that was a joke. At the school, it's pretty well known that Werner is a mastermind. Higher-ups ask him to solve all these equations. They give him like extra lessons so he can solve like triangular equations and Einstein who found dead in the ditch. I don't know, so that he can find radio signals. But get this. School teachers are actually soldiers. They're like ex-soldiers discharged from the army. They have these weird trials where they ask very visibly weak soldiers to point out in their class who they think the weakest link is. And they always point out someone who's not them. So one time they asked this guy, who do you think the weakest link? And this guy's like, Frederick. My boy Frederick over there, he is most certainly the weakest link. He can't run that fast. They play this game kind of like red light, green light. And the teacher, he stands like over here. Frederick stands over here and his classmates are over here. They're like, okay, you gotta run all the way here in this specific amount of time, and if you don't, then you're gonna get beat up. So he's like, 1, 2, 3, go. Frederick runs, and all the classmates are running after him, trying to like catch him. It's pretty scary, pretty intense. But the first time it happens, Frederick's fine, nothing happens, he gets there on time. This guy, he's in the trenches. Second time it happens, they catch him, they beat him up. It's crazy, it's wild. So this keeps happening, and eventually Fred gets sent home because he gets beat up so often. Werner goes with him, he meets his family, finds out a deep, dirty little secret about Fred. Guess what the secret is? Fred needs glasses. I know. Who saw it coming? Not me. That's not the only thing they find out. Guess what the other gag is? He has an illegal book about birds. Fred loves birds. He has a book about birds. That's not allowed. If you didn't know, in Nazi Germany, there were many illegal books that were not German. If like a book was written by like an American author, they're like, no, burn that book. That's illegal. He has the book. Werner's like, oh shit, this guy, he's got an illegal book. Fred gets beat up so badly that he gets sent home for good. That's the thing of itself. But the gag is, Werner never tried to help Fred when he was getting beat up. He was just standing there, be like, oh shit, that sucks. And Fred would be like there with like a blue eye, and he'd be like, man, help me. And then Werner's like, nah, I'm good over here, bruh. Who is Fred's biggest op? It's not the classmates. It's Werner. Werner, do better.
I gotta put me first.
Except for Lewis Hoffman or whatever the last name is. You're fine the way you are. Werner gets drafted into the war, puts his knowledge into practice, and starts finding transmissions and signals and such from the ops. Werner ends up traveling with his crew. He ends up traveling to like Russia and France, and guess where he ends up? Saint Malo. And you know who else is in Saint Malo? That's right, you guessed it, Mary Laura. Saint Malo is under siege. It's getting actively bombed. Somehow she doesn't croak in her house, doesn't get blown up, but that's neither here nor there. Her great uncle Etienne is sent to a refuge camp with all the other men. Before I mentioned the Sea of Flames, well, there's this old guy named Von Rumpel. This guy is a Yahtzee gemologist, and he's been searching for the Sea of Flames. He ends up in St. Malo. He knows Mary Laura has the stone because her father doesn't have it. He breaks into her house to search for it. Freaking weirdo, like what the hell? He doesn't think Mary Laura is in the house. He thinks she's with all the other girlies, but she is, and she's hiding in her attic for like 4 days, I think it is. And this guy is in her house for just as long. So at this point in the story, guess who's in the city? Werner. He's hiding out in this B hotel. That hotel gets bombed. He's in the basement when this happens. The building collapses on top of him. Some of his friends get crushed, but his other friend, Frank Volkheimer, he's the sergeant. He gets like injured, but he doesn't die. So these cheeky little lads get trapped in the basement of the hotel, and while they're down there, it's not until like the 4th day, gets a signal, and guess who's on the other end? Mary fucking Lore. She's everywhere, man. She's out here reading a Braille book. You can hear the geologist. She's like, oh my god, this guy's gonna find me. Guess who hears her over the transmission? Werner. Werner hears her, and he's like, shit, I gotta save her, I gotta help out. Werner knows her, but she doesn't know him. Let me explain. When he was above ground a couple days ago, he tracked her signal, and they're like, oh, we gotta stop this, we can't have any more resistances. They find her house, and when she comes outside, he's thinking it's like some able-bodied man who's gonna lead a resistance. No, it's just this little blind girl, 16 at this point of the story. And he's like, oh, that changes things. And he's like, oh, she's fine. And he falls in love with her. I know. Wild. Von Ruppel ends up cornering her and asking her about her dad. He's like, what did your dad leave? Did he leave you anything? And she's like, oh shit, he's looking for the Sea of Flames. She clocks this like immediately, and she's like, okay, I gotta go home, gotta get the flame, hide it, because she knows that her dad left it there. She skedaddles home, she snatches it, she crawls into the attic. Now back to Werner. He's in the hotel basement. Side note,
what's the word? What's the haps? What's your major?
most of his storyline takes place in the basement, and it's so boring, and it's like, oh, I don't care that you're crushed by a stone, like, get your girl. Can you tell I'm a romance fiend? Stop, why is there just random hair here? This is what I have to deal with, man. This is the black experience. Okay, anyways, back to Werner. He literally busts himself out of the basement, and he's like, oh god, I gotta find her. Climbs out with Volkheimer. They go their separate ways. Volkheimer goes to a restaurant, eats his food. Werner runs over to Mary Laura's house. He kills Von Rumpel. He finds her in the attic because she climbs down, and he sees her. And just as they meet, a bunch of explosions go off, and then because Mary Laura knows that he saved her and he has her best interest in mind, she's like, we gotta go to the cellar and we gotta hide from these explosions. He's like, sure, bet, let's go. I guess you could say they fall in love, but like also not really. They don't have very many scenes together. They read a book together, wait till there's a ceasefire. When there's a ceasefire, when the explosions stop, he takes her to a camp and she gets reunited with Etienne. When the war's over, they go back to Paris and live in a house she used to live in with her dad. It's like right next to the museum, so that's nice. Werner, on the other hand, gets captured and sent to a camp for German soldiers. It's not like anything bad, it's just like to help him heal. He is very sick because he was trapped in the basement of the hotel for so long. He has no nutrients, he probably has scurvy or some shit. But one day, get this is crazy. He's hallucinating. He gets out of bed, starts walking, having a jolly little jaunt. Soldier sees him, he's like, hey, wait, stop. Werner doesn't give a shit. He steps on a landmine placed by his own army. He gets blown up, and then he croaks.
But imagine how tired we are. Imagine how tired we are of it.
Wild. This is flash forward. She's old now, she's working at a museum, and while she's there, Jutta, Werner's little sister, visits her, and she has something of Mary's. Take a guess. Take a guess what she has. She just happens to have the house that Mary Laura's dad carved her. Jutta gives her the house. She tells her that Werner died, and she just dips, and she's like, bye, see ya. So Volkheimer, Werner's sergeant, received a box in the mail, and the box had all of Werner's things because he was, again, his sergeant. By proxy, when Werner died, he received all his things. He gives it all to Jutta, tells her that the house is from this little French girl that he met. He clocked that Werner was in love with her. Tells her that she used to live in Saint Malo and she might want the box or the house back. Jutta goes and she's like, oh, let me give her the house. She goes to Saint Malo, Mary's not there, tracks her down to Paris, but at the museum, and gives her the house for closure, I guess. That's how the story ends. Just to tie up some loose ends, let me just explain a couple things that happened. Etienne dies of old age. Mary Laure gets married to some guy. I don't think they get married, actually. I think they just have a kid together. And the daughter's in her 20s now. She has a grandson. Jutta has a kid too. She gets married. She has a lot of trauma from the war, obviously. I didn't talk a lot about her storyline, but she went through some traumatic things. Volkheimer, the sergeant guy, he becomes an electrician slash plumber guy, I guess. Time for my final thoughts. I liked the book. I thought it was very interesting. I usually don't read books like these. I'm more of a romance gal. Obviously, I have the capacity to read things that aren't romance, but romance really makes things more interesting in the context of literature. If you want, I'm gonna have my goodreads in my description because I want to be one of those cool like booktuber girly pops. But not really, because I don't read fast enough for that. I rated it 4 stars. I think it was a really, really good book. It's definitely a story that should be told. Yeah, You did that, Anthony Dorr. Good job. However, I didn't love the pacing of the story. Again, with this whole Sea of Flames thing and Volkheimer, like, it was so uninteresting. Like, who cares? Who cares? Not me. I had to listen to the audiobook while I read just because it was low-key kind of boring at some parts. But that's also just me and my TikTok Gen Z attention span. I really like the characters and how they interact with each other. That's something that I place quite a bit of importance on when I read. I'm very excited to watch the miniseries and of course to see my boy Lewis. Anyways, I think that's all. I'm gonna take some thumbnail pictures and I will see you next time. Bye. Oh wait. Bye.